No one becomes a different person just because time passes. Time does not resurrect you. It will not hand you a new life if you continue walking with the same old legs and the same old mindset. People don't change by waiting long enough. People only change when they make a radical decision that I will not live one more day the same way. The truth is, what you need isn't another year of learning, another month of thinking, or another week of preparation. What you need is a decisive choice, and you need it now. Every major transformation in life begins with a small decision that no one else sees, yet that very decision splits your life into a before and an after. The weak believe change must come from circumstances, when there's more free time, when others change, when there's enough money, enough strength, enough luck. But the strong understand this: without a resolute moment to overthrow the old self, next year will only be a faded replica of the last. Every extraordinary person I've ever met shares one trait. They do not let their past, their environment, or their emotions define who they become. They don't wait for perfection before they begin. They don't need more approval to rise to a new level. They need only one thing: an awakening. And that moment never arrives for someone who sits and waits. It comes only to the one who slams their hand on the table and declares, "Enough! I will change starting today. Not because I'm certain, but because I refuse to remain stuck." You don't need to accumulate enough anger, enough pain, or enough inspiration to start changing. You only need a brutally honest conversation with yourself. You just need to stand in front of the mirror and dare to look into the eyes that haven't lit up for any worthy cause in far too long. You only need to admit this one truth: that if you keep living the way you currently do, then there's nothing truly worth looking forward to ahead. And the moment you feel that deep down in your bones, the decision to change is no longer a choice. It becomes a moral obligation to your very existence. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for the right time, but opportunity is not for those who wait. It's for those who create it. If you're reading these words, it's not by accident. It's because a part of you is fed up with stagnation, exhausted from living beneath your potential, and quietly ashamed of everything you're letting slip away each day. And if you don't seize this moment, what will really be different next week? Still the same pattern of procrastination, still the same unkept promises, still that haunting sense that you were meant for more. When you decide for real, everything inside you will shift. You'll stop asking questions like, "Can I really do this?" and start asking, "How do I make sure I never go back?" That is the difference between someone who lives with intention and someone who lives with commitment. Intentions can shift with emotions, but commitment stays unchanged, even when your emotions crash. If you truly want to change, abandon vague intentions. Make a vow, write it down, declare it aloud, and turn yourself into someone with no path of retreat. You cannot step into a new chapter of life if you keep your hands stuck on the old page, and you won't see yourself as extraordinary if you continue living like an ordinary person waiting for a miracle. The only miracle you can truly believe in is when you completely transform the way you think, the way you choose, and the way you act, starting from this very moment. A decision is an internal act, but it's more powerful than 1,000 words. And when you truly decide, you'll find yourself no longer held back by fear, doubt, or the past. You won't need more external motivation, because inside you, a flame will already be burning that nothing can extinguish. People won't see exactly when you changed. They'll only be startled to realize you're no longer who you used to be. They'll feel confused when you're quieter but more resolute, when you no longer crave validation but only the forward motion. And when you stay loyal to your decision to rebirth yourself, you won't need anyone to understand. You'll only need yourself to believe. Today, don't make another to-do list. Don't draft another 10-page plan. Just write down one sentence. I will no longer allow myself to live small, not even for one more day. Read it every morning. Let it become your inner compass that guides every action. And if you still doubt, remember this: Remember, this extraordinary result begins with a very ordinary decision, carried out in an extraordinary way. This is not an introduction, this is a doorway. And you either walk through it, or you remain on the other side forever. There is no third path, no halfway step. There is either forward, or there is stuck. So then, will you live one more day the same? Or will you begin a whole new life starting right now? You cannot become a new version of yourself if you're still clinging to your old identity like a faded coat. Change doesn't begin by adding more. It begins by removing. Every upgraded version of yourself demands rejection. You cannot move to a higher floor without leaving the lower one behind. The problem is most people don't stay stuck because they don't know what they want. They stay stuck because they lack the courage to let go of what no longer fits. And the old identity is the strongest chain holding them in the land of mediocrity. You weren't born with an identity. You formed it through repeated choices, through beliefs you once accepted, through the words you've told yourself every day. But because it was created, you have every right to destroy it. The difference between those who are reborn and those who remain stuck doesn't lie in the number of failures. It lies in the ability to cut ties with a version of themselves that no longer fits. And if you are truly serious about change, then your first step isn't to improve, but to wipe clean. Take a long look at the person you're currently carrying, the habit of procrastination, the familiar excuses, the negative reactions to failure, the need for external validation, the fear of rejection, and the tendency to retreat at the first sign of hardship. None of that is truly you. They are just extensions of an ego that has been allowed to persist too long without being questioned. So today, you must be the one to ask the first question. Why am I still holding on to this? Does it still serve the journey I've chosen? Rebirth is never the result of vague desire. It only happens when you dare to confront yourself and acknowledge without avoidance, there are parts of who I am that no longer deserve to continue with me. And you don't have to hate that old version of yourself. You only need to understand that it served its purpose. It helped you survive a previous chapter. But now you're not here to survive, you're here to grow. No one truly grows while keeping old habits, old mindsets, and old environments. You can't fly if you're still shackled. The irony is, the old identity won't leave on its own. It clings to you with sweet whispers, just this once. You don't need to try so hard. This is just how you've always been. And if you're not alert enough, you'll listen to it like a dear friend. But remember, your old identity doesn't care about your progress. It only cares about your comfort. To be reborn, you must choose between two things, the safety of the old self or the initial discomfort of the new one. And you can't choose both. One is familiar, comfortable, but limited. The other is unfamiliar, challenging, but expansive. The choice is always clear. But do you have the courage to act on it? If the answer is yes, then act. Write down every habit, mindset, and belief you know has been holding you back. No justification, no sugarcoating it with reasons. Write it down like a death list. The things that have slowly killed your growth day by day without you even noticing. Then do this final act. Destroy it in a symbolic gesture. Burn it. Tear it to pieces. Throw it into the fire. Or bury it deep in the ground. You don't do this to feel strange. You do it to declare to your subconscious, I am done. A symbolic action, if performed with genuine emotion, can leave a permanent mark on your mind. It becomes a milestone, the moment you are no longer the same. And whenever the old identity knocks on your door again with fear, with delay, with surrender, you can remember the moment you burned that list and whisper to yourself, no, I don't live there anymore. Understand this, you cannot build a castle on broken foundations. Before you add anything new, knowledge, skills, new beliefs, you must clear the old ground. You must work like an architect, unafraid to demolish, unbothered by outdated designs, because you know what you are about to build is worthy of your boldness. This is where all rebirth begins, not from a new book not from an expensive course, not from outside encouragement, but from the moment you dare to say a definitive sentence, I am no longer who I was yesterday, and act as if that were already the truth. Liberating yourself doesn't come from doing more. It comes from letting go of the right things. Today, stop repainting an outdated version of yourself. Step out of it completely. Burn the mask you've worn for far too long and stand there, naked, with the truth. You are fully capable of rebirth, but only if you dare to destroy what no longer serves the bigger journey you've chosen. No one else can do this for you. No one else can decide for you that your old identity has reached its time to fall away like a dried shell. You must be the one to perform that ceremony, with seriousness, without emotion, like a warrior cutting off the dead to save what's still alive. And when you do that, no promise will matter more than that act. No one needs to know. It's just you and yourself. And a silent but powerful decision. I've chosen to live differently. And once that choice is made, there is no turning back. No one builds willpower by choosing the easiest path. Every time you choose comfort, you are training your brain to submit to procrastination. Every time you say, I'll do it tomorrow, you are planting a command into your subconscious that responsibility can be postponed. And then tomorrow arrives with a brand new excuse, a justifiable fatigue, a rational sounding reason. But don't confuse what sounds reasonable with what is true. Reasonable is what you invent to escape. Truth is the only thing that keeps you close to your goal. Successful people don't live by emotion, they live by principle. Emotions are waves, they rise and fall. Principles are bedrock, solid and non-negotiable. And the first principle of those who achieve inner freedom is this: always do the hard thing first. Always choose the steeper path. Always say no to the easy option that offers no growth. Discipline is not blind harshness. Discipline is deep love for a future that's worth it. You don't force yourself into strictness. You simply no longer accept ease as a long-term solution. Don't believe that you will become stronger just by reading more books, watching more motivational videos, or making detailed plans. You only become stronger when you dare to act against your instinct for ease, when you wake up on time even though no one's watching, when you do what needs to be done even if no one praises you, when you train your body, learn a new skill, reject social media, and overcome laziness with a push that comes from within. That's when you're building an invisible foundation, one that will support every great achievement that follows. The human mind tends to return to familiar zones because they offer temporary safety, but ease has never meant right. When you allow yourself to live in comfort, you're weakening your ability to face challenges. That's why resilient people are not born from ease. They are forged from rejecting unnecessary ease. Every cup of coffee you sip to delay your work, every time you scroll mindlessly out of habit, every second you spend reading meaningless news, all of it is silently draining the strength you need for the life you truly deserve. Discipline is the one thing no one can give you and no one can take away. It's not built through slogans. It is forged in boring repetition in the small choices no one sees. The undisciplined believe they need motivation to act. The disciplined understand that action creates motivation. That's the logic of those who go far. Act first, feel later. When you wake up and feel like doing nothing, that is not a reason to delay. That is your opportunity to train your discipline muscle. You are not a victim of your emotions. You are the one who decides what gets to influence you. And if you truly want change, you must learn to say no to what's easy but unaligned with your bigger goals. Instead of sleeping 15 more minutes, get out of bed and gain an advantage over most of the world. Instead of eating to numb your emotions, eat to build energy. Instead of waiting for inspiration, learn to work without it, because that is where your strength is built. Every time you say no to an old habit, you're saying yes to a higher version of yourself. And there's no such thing as a neutral choice. You are either training yourself in clarity and resilience, or you are reinforcing patterns of weakness and delay. This doesn't require perfection, but it does require intention. You can't live with the mindset, I'll try to avoid temptation. You have to live by a system where temptation has no entry point. Discipline is not as dry as you think. It is the highest expression of self-respect. When you live with discipline, you're telling the world, I don't live aimlessly, I have direction. And I'm willing to pay the price daily to build it. The world doesn't treat you based on your hopes. It treats you based on the standards you set for yourself. If you are lenient with yourself, don't expect life to be serious about you. If you want others to respect your time, your words, and your ability, start by respecting yourself through daily discipline. The scripture says, virtue is great, but vice is flesh. Lazy habits don't disappear just because you avoid them. They only die when you repeat disciplined actions enough times to replace them with a new operating system. And no one can do that for you. You must teach yourself this truth. What's easy is the sweetest trap, and also the one most people never escape from. But you are different, because you've seen the truth. And once you've truly seen it, you can never pretend to be blind again. Starting today, set an unbreakable rule. Always choose the harder thing when faced with two options. Do the thing you're avoiding. Start what you've been postponing. Complete one small action, even when you don't feel like it. Each time you do that, you are proving to yourself, I can control me. And the person who can control themselves is someone no force can defeat. It's not the strongest who wins. It's the most disciplined who reaches the end. The difference between the one who changes their life and the one who only talks about change lies in the ability to say no to ease and yes to necessity, even when no one sees it, even when no one claps, and especially when you don't feel like it. Refusing what's easy today is the first step to ensuring that tomorrow you won't live with regret. This is not extremism. This is commitment. And that commitment will rewrite the destiny you're living. You don't need to open your mouth for others to form an impression of who you are. The moment you walk into a room, your posture, your gaze, your breathing rhythm, the way you sit down or stand up, all of it is telling a story. And that story doesn't lie in your words, but in your body, in the way you carry yourself through the world. If you've never thought about this, then it's likely that your body is betraying the image you're trying to build. A slouched posture is never associated with a person of action. Someone who moves hurriedly and chaotically will never make others feel safe. And a body that drags itself around is the external manifestation of an internal system that's falling apart. You don't need bulging muscles or a sculpted physique to earn respect, but you do need composure, solidity, and intention in every movement. Your body isn't just a vehicle for moving from place to place, it's the physical shell of your thinking, your discipline, and your value system. The body does not lie. It will reflect laziness if you let it expand unconsciously. It will reflect avoidance if you use food to numb emotions. It will reflect a lack of self-respect if you allow it to deteriorate over time. When you take care of your body, you're not simply preserving health. You're sending a signal to your subconscious that says, I deserve to be strong, alert, and full of vitality. And every mindful meal you choose, every workout you finish despite fatigue, every glass of water you drink instead of a third coffee, each is a vote you cast for a future lived in strength rather than passivity and weakness. The ancients understood this. The Stoic sages were not mere theorists. They practiced physical hardship to master the mind. Seneca fasted, bathed in cold water, and slept on stone floors, not for asceticism, but to train inner resilience, because they knew he who controls his body also controls his mind. You cannot expect to have strong willpower in your head if your body is ruled by weak habits. If you walk slowly, drained with a hunchback as if carrying the weight of the world, others will assume you've already surrendered to something. They won't need to ask. They only need to look. On the other hand, Someone with a steady body, firm stride, open shoulders, and an unwavering gaze without saying a single word already makes others adjust how they treat them. This isn't about faking confidence. This is about rebuilding the foundation of presence, starting with the most tangible part of you, your physical body. You want others to respect you? Then start by letting your body be living proof of that respect. No one respects someone who neglects themselves. No one gives great opportunities to a person who looks like they don't have the energy to carry their own weight. And most importantly, you'll never respect yourself if every time you look in the mirror you see a neglected body, a hesitant gaze, and a posture lacking vitality. Don't make excuses like "I'm too busy," "I wasn't born with good genes," or "I'm too old now." These are merely masks for the refusal to take action. You don't need a perfect body, but you need a body that reflects discipline. Everyone has a choice, and that is the key. Others may be born with aesthetic advantages, but you can become someone with a body that reflects proactive living if you commit to it as part of mastering yourself. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Walk every day. Drink water properly. Gradually reduce processed foods. Practice sitting upright while working. Turn off your phone 30 minutes before bed. Wake up an hour earlier to begin the day on your own terms. Each of these small actions, when repeated, will transform your body into a strong foundation for every battle you need to win. Inner transformation cannot be separated from the physical body. When you train your muscles, you're also retraining your reflexive mindset. When you lift heavier weights, you raise your expectations for yourself. When you run 1 more kilometer, even though your body is exhausted, you're teaching your brain, I still have the choice to move forward even when I want to stop. That is resilience no textbook can teach. Only action can engrave it into your bones. Your body is the only temple you'll live in for the rest of your life. Don't let it become a dumping ground for emotional waste, surrender, and lack of self-respect. Make it a sacred place where every heartbeat, every step, every drop of sweat is a vow. I live with purpose. I show up with strength. I am the one driving this game, not someone pulled by circumstance. If tomorrow you walk out into the world and without saying a single word, people can feel that something in you has changed, then that's the moment your body has begun speaking the language of mastery, and nothing is more inspiring than that. So, will you continue letting your body be a relic of old habits, or will you transform it into a living testimony of the new identity you're building each day? The choice is yours, but the consequences or rewards cannot be faked. How you walk, how you breathe, what you eat, what you choose to keep or reject, all of it speaks every day. The only question is your body saying what you truly want others to hear? If not, then it's time to rewrite that entire story through every movement you make today. You're not just eating to stay alive, you're eating to reshape the way you think, respond, and act. Food doesn't just enter your body, it flows through every fold of your nervous system, every signal-carrying blood vessel, every cell responsible for clarity in decision-making and sharpness in willpower. The problem is, most people don't eat with that awareness. They eat to soothe, to fill a void, to escape, to momentarily forget a tiring day or the things they haven't dared to face. And that kind of eating shapes a version of yourself that is weak, indulgent, foggy, and out of control. The food you choose is the clearest physical expression of an invisible belief, what you think you deserve. A disciplined person would never choose to put into their body something that delays performance. A person who lives with intention would not allow themselves to eat based on emotion like a wounded child. No one can conquer the world in a body held back by sugar, preservatives, greasy, fried food, and a mind constantly bouncing due to artificial hunger from caffeine and blood sugar spikes. Everything you eat is silently yet steadily reprogramming you. Food affects the level of dopamine you generate. It affects the speed of your thoughts, your ability to process information, the energy in your voice, even the quality of your dreams. A person who eats chaotically will have a chaotic mind. A person who eats with intention will begin to think with greater precision, make clearer decisions, and maintain emotional stability even when the world around them is in chaos. The question is not, what do you like to eat? The real question is, what is this food doing to me? If it pulls you into a state of sluggishness, laziness, restlessness, or uncontrollable cravings, then it is weakening the one thing you need most to change, your capacity for clear decision-making. And once that is eroded, no system of discipline can hold firm. Those who live by principle do not eat to satisfy their mouths. They eat to serve their ideals. They understand that a meal is a refined tool for managing the flow of energy their brain and body will need for higher pursuits. They don't eat because it tastes good. They eat because the timing is right. They don't chew with emotion. They chew with consciousness. And every spoonful they put into their mouth is a decision about the direction they will take that day. Food can either lift you up or drag you down. It can make you feel proactive, light, and clear-headed, or it can make you feel sluggish, irritable, and exhausted. And if you pay close attention, you'll realize most of the times you lose your mood are not because life got worse, but because your biological energy is depleted from poor food choices. No one thinks clearly after a meal loaded with sugar and bad fats. No one feels confident with a bloated stomach and a brain functioning like it's buried in mud. Do you want to build a nervous system that belongs to a powerful decision maker? Then start by cleaning up what you put in your mouth. Eliminate refined sugar. Eliminate packaged foods with ingredient lists as long as a contract. Eliminate alcohol, soda, and the foods you reach for only when you feel weak. And start adding in things that may not give instant pleasure but will nourish you for the long haul. Leafy greens, clean proteins, healthy fats, pure water, real food. You don't have to become a nutrition expert, just become someone who listens to their body. After each meal, ask, how do I feel? Alert or fatigued? Refreshed or heavy? Ready to dive into work or just wanting to lie down? From there, you'll know what lifts you up and what drags you down. And once you know that, there's no reason left to keep treating yourself like a trash bin for emotional impulses. Eating is not a side issue. It is one of the three main pillars of self-mastery. You cannot have true discipline if you don't control how you eat. You cannot access the clarity needed to think like a strategist if you fuel your brain with cheap energy. And you cannot reach peak performance if every day is a battle against sugar, caffeine, and volatile energy. Look at the people you admire, athletes, entrepreneurs, leaders. They don't treat eating as a random activity. They design their diet as part of their success system. No one reaches the top when their body is being subtly poisoned every day. And you can't stay mentally sharp if your digestive system is constantly struggling with poor quality food. Alertness is an asset. And what are you trading it for in each meal? Convenience? A brief sense of comfort? A short dopamine hit? If that's the case, you're trading your grand future for a few fleeting minutes of satisfaction. And that is never worth it. Starting today, eat like someone with a mission. Choose your food as if you're training the brain of a leader. Refuse food out of habit and choose it because you know it serves a greater ideal. When you begin to see eating as a tool to shape your thinking, you'll stop using it as a place to hide from emotions. And when that shift happens, you won't just change your body. You'll rewrite the entire operating system that governs you. No action is as simple as eating, yet is deeply impactful on consciousness. So will you continue letting your body be driven by your mouth and fleeting feelings, or will you choose food to reprogram the stronger version of you waiting to emerge? That decision isn't made on a special occasion. It's made at your very next meal. And that meal will decide which version of yourself you belong to. You don't need to know your entire future to predict who you'll become. Just look at what you repeat every day, in silence, without an audience, without applause. It is those seemingly small actions that are quietly carving out the shape of the destiny you will one day live. People don't fail suddenly, nor do they succeed by accident. Every outcome is seeded from a sequence of repeated behaviors. And when a behavior is repeated long enough, it becomes a habit. When a habit is sustained persistently, it becomes an identity. An identity, that is what determines which kind of life you will belong to. You are not what you do occasionally. You are the result of what you do consistently. Someone who wakes up early once is not a disciplined person, but someone who wakes up early every day, regardless of weather, regardless of how late they slept the night before, that person is establishing the nervous system of a leader. And the important thing is, you don't need to do anything grand to start rewriting your habits. You just need one small right action, repeated with absolute awareness. Destiny is not predetermined. It is programmed by micro behaviors. Do you choose to snooze your alarm and sleep for 15 more minutes, or do you jump up and step out of bed? Do you open social media while your mind is still foggy, or do you open a notes page and write down 3 priorities for the day? Do you slump in front of the screen with your phone in hand, or do you stand up, take a breath, and return to your unfinished task? These aren't just temporary choices. They are code that directly programs the neural architecture of your brain. And over time, they define who you are. No behavior, however small, is neutral. It either brings you closer to the person you want to become or pulls you back toward the version you're trying to outgrow. You don't repeat an action just because it fits your schedule. You repeat it because it affirms your identity. A person who writes every day, even just a paragraph, is affirming the identity of a creator. A person who tidies their workspace before starting is restoring order to their internal world. A person who exercises for just 15 minutes each morning is planting a message into their subconscious. I am worth caring for. I am important enough to invest in myself. A habit is not something you try to maintain. A habit is something you allow to define you. And you cannot build lasting habits if you keep treating each day as a game of whim and chance. People without a clear habit system tend to live by emotion, and so their life outcomes fluctuate as unpredictably as their feelings. But successful people don't rely on feelings, they rely on structure. Habits are the core structure that keeps them grounded when everything around them shifts. If you're struggling with low motivation, stop chasing inspiration. Start building habits. Inspiration may come and go, but habits are what keep the engine running even when you feel like doing nothing at all. A person with the right habits doesn't need motivation to act. They act first, and then motivation gets activated. That's a reversed order that those stuck in inertia will never understand. You can start with simple principles. Wake up at the same hour every day. Write down 3 things to do before checking your phone. Read 10 pages of a book before going to bed. Focus for 45 uninterrupted minutes on a single task. Drink enough water. Don't eat after 8 p.m. Don't bring your phone into the bedroom. Each of these tiny behaviors isn't just about improving your life in some vague way. They are system commands entered into your brain to transform the entire way you operate. Here's the strange part. The more you repeat the right actions, the more worthy you feel of greater outcomes. And from that sense of worthiness, you begin to behave like someone with higher standards. You eat more consciously, you communicate more intentionally, your words carry more weight, you invest more deeply in learning. And then habits give birth to attitude. Attitude gives birth to choices. Choices give birth to results. Results reaffirm your identity. That loop, if run properly, will pull you into an entirely new trajectory of life you couldn't have imagined just months ago. Others won't understand why you've changed, but they will sense it in the way you show up. On time, in posture, in presence. They will begin to respond to you as someone trustworthy, respectable, worth learning from. And they won't be wrong, because you yourself are also responding to yourself in that same way. You begin to respect yourself more with every old bad habit you overcome. And that self-respect doesn't need anyone's validation. It is enough to fuel your momentum every single day. If you are truly serious about changing your destiny, stop asking, who will I become in the future? Instead, ask, what am I repeating today? Because your fate isn't located in what you hope for. It lives in the unconscious actions you repeat without thinking. Want to change your life? Don't start with a 5-year plan. Start with what you'll do the moment you finish reading this section. Because if you don't begin repeating something different today, then nothing will be different tomorrow. You weren't born with the right habits, but you can choose to build them and let them rebuild you bit by bit, day by day, until one day when someone asks you, "How did you change so much?" You'll simply smile and say, "I just chose one small behavior. Then I repeated it until it reshaped my entire life." The mind is the most powerful tool you own, but only if you can control it. Otherwise, it will control you with outdated programs, limiting beliefs, and unconscious reflexes that you're not even aware of. Most people don't live rationally. They live according to thought habits. They react instead of taking initiative. They think they're choosing, but in reality, they're simply repeating old patterns shaped by fear, past wounds, or environmental conditioning. And then they wonder why, no matter how hard they try, life still runs in circles. The human mind never stops running, but that doesn't mean it's serving you. An untrained mind is a wild horse. It has power, but also a tendency to drag you off course if no one's holding the reins. Every thought that passes through your head leaves a trace. Repeat it long enough and it becomes a belief. And beliefs are the ultimate commanders behind every decision you make. If you believe you're not good enough, you will behave as if that's true. If you believe you're bound to fail, you'll sabotage yourself even while trying hard. No one is born with a clear mind, but everyone has the ability to train it. And the difference between someone who is conscious and someone who lives on autopilot lies exactly here. Who is in control? You, or the unconscious thoughts running through your mind. You cannot master what you do not observe. The first step to gaining control over your mind is learning to see what it's doing at every moment. What are you saying to yourself when you wake up, when you make a mistake, when you receive negative feedback, when you face an opportunity? If your inner dialogue is filled with phrases like, "I'm not sure," "I'm not good at this," "I always have bad luck," or "I know I'll fail," then you don't need anyone to stop you. You're already doing it yourself. The journey to mastering the mind begins with rewriting your internal language. No top athlete tells themselves, "I might lose," before stepping into the arena. They repeat the right affirmations until it becomes embedded in their system. They reprogram their brain with the right language. You can do the same. Every morning, begin with a clear, positive declaration. Without using "I wish" or "if only." Use the present tense. Be decisive. No ambiguity, because your brain doesn't differentiate between truth and fiction. It only obeys what gets repeated the most. That becomes its operating system. Thoughts are seeds, but you can't harvest fruit if you sow once and let the soil dry up. You have to water them through repetition, through concrete action, and through rejecting toxic thoughts the moment they arise. Every time you notice yourself thinking negatively, don't deny it. Look straight at it. Ask, is this thought based on truth or just an old reflex from a version of me I've chosen to outgrow? Then replace it with a statement that's active, affirmative, and directional. Repeat it. Write it down. Say it out loud. Turn the right message into your new default. No one has a strong mind without training. Just like muscles, the mind needs friction, challenge, and discomfort to grow. Create environments that push you past your limits. Meditate for 10 minutes each morning to clear mental clutter. Journal each evening to reflect on whether you've been thinking like a leader or a follower. Read books on strategic thinking, philosophy, psychology. Instead of consuming empty entertainment, put yourself in challenging conversations where you must argue against your own old beliefs. Your mind cannot be clear if it's drowning in excess information. Look at what you're consuming each day, not just with your mouth, but with your eyes, ears, and awareness. If you spend too much time reading negative news, scrolling through comparison-filled social media, absorbing complaints and fears from others, don't expect a calm mind. A strong mind starts with a clean mental environment. Guard your inputs like a gatekeeper. You wouldn't allow trash into your home, so don't let it into your mind. Focus is the clearest sign of a mind under control. And in today's world where distraction is the norm, the person who can focus deeply for 30 minutes is already outperforming most. Don't live like a phone with too many background apps running. Learn to close and shut them off completely. Keep only what's necessary. Each time you choose to focus on one single task, you're training your brain in the art of selection. And the person who knows what to focus on is the person who can steer their life with intention. You don't need to be a genius to control your mind. You just need consistency. Day by day, reset your internal language, clean your informational inputs. Focus on one right action, rewrite old stories with new narratives. This isn't the work of one evening. It's a system for living, where you no longer live by default, but by design. And that is where you begin to be truly free, not because life becomes easier, but because you no longer respond in the same old ways. You don't panic. You don't lose control easily. You don't let a fleeting emotion ruin an entire day. You move through chaos with inner clarity. You face adversity without losing direction. And you act not because you're being pushed, but because you know exactly what you're doing. No long-lasting success is built on a messy mind. The person who can master their mind is a person who can master their fate. And when you control what's happening inside, you no longer fear what happens outside. The world can't throw you off track because your compass is within. So starting today, don't live on autopilot anymore. Step out of the fog of unconsciousness and take back the wheel. Your mind is a powerful machine. Don't let it drive you to places you never meant to go. Train it, master it, and then you'll realize you were never lacking in ability. You just never had someone teach you how to reclaim the steering wheel. Now it's time. No one becomes strong by avoiding discomfort. Inner strength doesn't come from peaceful days, but from the very moment you step into what you don't want to face and decide, I will not run anymore. Growth isn't measured by how much you know, but by how much you can endure without losing your sense of self. Everyone wants to be resilient, yet most choose to avoid the very things that build resilience. And so they live as fragile versions of themselves, wrapped in excuses, always looking for a detour instead of walking straight through. You don't forge willpower by doing what's easy. You can't develop mental toughness by staying away from situations that challenge your comfort. The things you're avoiding today, a hard conversation, a tough workout, the half-finished writing, the decision you've postponed, are the very tests you're delaying. But remember this, you can't avoid them forever. What you avoid will grow in the dark, and eventually it won't be a small discomfort anymore. It'll become a mountain blocking your path to living fully with yourself. Those who live deeply are not the ones who escape the storm. They walk right into it, knowing it will hurt, it will stretch them, it will stir up every part of their soul. But that very act, facing what you want most to avoid, is what builds strength that cannot be easily broken. The more familiar you become with discomfort, the more your field of action expands. The more you engage with challenge, the less you react from weakness. And one day, the thing that once terrified you becomes the place where you now find peace. Inner strength doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's built through every time you endure what's uncomfortable without collapsing. It's when you go to the gym even when you're not in the mood. It's when you sit back down to work instead of curling up to scroll your phone. It's when you speak honestly to the person you've been avoiding. It's when you step onto the stage, into the tension, beyond the fear, with your heart racing but your feet holding firm. And every such moment doesn't just mean finishing a hard task, it means rewriting your self-definition. I am someone who does not run. You can start with simple things. Take a cold shower when your mind screams for hot water. Wake up earlier even when sleep wasn't perfect. Discipline yourself to study for 1 hour each evening, even when your brain feels drained. Disconnect from social media for 24 hours, just to test how much control you have over your cravings, not to punish yourself, but to prove you're in charge, that you are the driver, not the puppet of emotions, habits, or circumstance. Every act of intentional discomfort is a message to your nervous system. I live to grow, not just to feel good. And the more of these experiences you accumulate, the more resilient your system becomes to real turbulence. When others panic, you remain clear. When others collapse from rejection, you take it as a signal to train harder. When failure happens, you don't retreat. You pause, analyze, and return with a better strategy. It all starts when you dare to do the hard thing, not because you like it, but because it matters. No one enjoys discomfort, but those with inner strength are the ones who don't need to enjoy it to still act. They don't wait for things to get easy before they begin. They begin right inside the difficulty. They understand inner strength doesn't arrive after the storm. It is created as you walk through it. And if you can keep going while others stop, that is the moment you rise above. Don't let yourself live forever within the limits of emotional comfort. Every time you avoid something, you're shrinking your sphere of influence. And the more you shrink it, the smaller you feel, less capable, less ready. But if you dare to expand your edge by stepping into what you tend to avoid, you'll see the fear isn't as big as you imagined. The pain isn't as long as you feared, and your capacity to endure is far greater than you ever believed. Inner strength cannot be learnt from theory. It only comes from practice in the real world. When you learn to endure, you don't become hardened, you become deeper. Because the one who can endure loneliness is the one who knows how to love genuinely. The one who moves through fear is the one who understands true courage. The one who accepts pain is the one who knows how to cherish joy. And the one who trains inner strength is the one who can offer stability to others when everything around is shaking. Strength isn't a roar. It's the calm in the middle of upheaval. It's when you sit down, take a deep breath, and say, all right, let me walk through this. It's when you don't demand that life be easier, but instead choose to become stronger. It's when you face what scares you without shrinking, without making excuses, without hiding behind a coping habit. You stay, you confront, and you grow. If there's something you've been avoiding, that's exactly where you need to return. Not because you're weak, but because you need to become stronger. Not because it has to be done today, but because if you keep running, you'll never gain mastery over yourself. Don't wait until life corners you to begin training your inner strength. Step outside your comfort zone by choice. Make things just a little harder on yourself each day so the world doesn't get to crush you later. Not everyone who is strong was once weak, but everyone who is strong has chosen to endure what others avoided. That's not instinct. That's training. And that training begins today with the choice you make to avoid or to face, to turn away or to move forward, to sit down or to rise. And every one of those actions will write the answer to the only question that matters. How far have you built your inner strength? No word you speak is harmless. Every sentence is a declaration of identity, a directive sent straight to your subconscious, a silent command you issue to your life without realizing it. People often think language is just a tool for communication, but for those who truly understand the power of words, they know language shapes reality. You can't speak like a skeptic and live like a decisive person. You can't complain every day and expect a life full of energy. You can't plant seeds of limitation with your words and expect to harvest a life of expansion. What you say often becomes the grooves of your thinking. What you say repeatedly becomes your belief. What you say with strong emotion becomes a behavioral directive. From there, the words you utter daily are no longer just sound. They're invisible blueprints building the reality you're living. Someone who constantly says, "I'm so tired," is not only physically drained, but mentally exhausted too. Someone who says, "I'm not sure anymore," is slowly stripping away their own confidence piece by piece. Someone who often begins with, "I don't know," is likely also someone who refuses to learn because they've already shut the door on the possibility of discovery. People who take ownership of their lives don't throw words around carelessly. They don't speak just to fill silence. They don't let words spill from their mouths out of habit. They use language like an architect uses a pen. Deliberate, precise, intentional. You'll never hear them complain about things they can't control because they know that only weakens their mindset. They don't make jokes by putting themselves down because they understand that words have the power to program. They never call themselves useless, lazy, or a failure. even in jest, because they know that every such remark is another line of code installed into their mental operating system. If you truly want to change, start with the language you use every day. You don't need to overhaul your entire vocabulary overnight, but you do need to set a new standard. Don't use negative words to describe yourself. Don't use weak words to dodge responsibility. Don't use empty phrases to mask your lack of commitment. When someone asks, "How are you?" skip the usual throwaways like "just the usual" or "so tired." Instead, speak with intention. "I'm making progress. I'm doing what I believe is right. I'm focused on growth." These aren't answers to impress. They are reminders to yourself of the identity you are building. Don't wait until you feel confident to speak the language of confidence. Speak as if you already are that person. Words come first, awareness follows. Behavior is adjusted by both. Charismatic people aren't admired because they speak more, but because they speak with weight. They don't scatter words to get attention. They choose every word as if it's a brick laid into someone else's foundation of thought and their own. Audit yourself. Are you unknowingly using phrases that damage your energy? Phrases like, "I probably can't do it. I've always been like this. I hate myself. I have such bad luck. There's nothing special about me." They may sound harmless, but in reality, they're sharp nails hammered into your self-respect every time you repeat them. On the other hand, when you replace them with phrases full of vitality, "I'm learning to do better. I can improve if I stay consistent. I'm not perfect, but I'm growing." You're creating a positive mental environment that nourishes every healthy behavior to come. Words are also a mirror of thought. If you pay close enough attention, you'll hear the fear hiding behind every sentence you speak. "I'm just joking" could be a sign of fear of judgment. "I don't know anymore" might be a way of avoiding the responsibility of making a choice. "I doubt anyone cares" may echo past wounds that haven't yet healed. Once you see that connection, you'll stop speaking just to speak. You'll begin to choose your words because you'll understand what you say doesn't just produce sound. It generates attraction, reflection, and ultimately results. Part of owning your life is learning to speak like the person you want to become, not the one you used to be. Use the language of responsibility, capability, and solutions. When problems arise, don't ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What can I learn from this?" When you face failure, don't blurt out again. Say, "I'm training my resilience." These sentences may seem small, but after 1,000 repetitions, they stop being words. They become your way of life. Words aren't just tools for connecting with others. They're the compass for your inner journey. People who speak carelessly live carelessly. People who speak negatively live in chaos. People who speak with clarity live with strong structure. Every morning, the first thing you say sets your direction for the day. And every night, the last words you whisper to yourself before sleep become the guide for your brain to reinforce the identity you're living. Starting today, live as if there's an invisible microphone recording every word you say, and the world is operating according to that frequency. If you want to live differently, speak differently. Speak accurately. Speak powerfully. Speak with purpose. Speak as if every word is shaping a new version of yourself from within. And each day, with precise language, you'll build a precise reality. Ultimately, you don't need to convince the whole world. You only need to convince one person to believe in you, and that person is you. And you do that through the way you speak to yourself every single day. No one else hears more of your words than you do. Turn your language into fuel, not chains, and then you'll realize you didn't change because of some grand event, but because of a series of right words, repeated long enough with enough conviction. The world doesn't see you the way you think. The world sees you as you present yourself, and the way you show up, from your posture, voice, and gaze to your energy frequency, is the silent introduction you bring into every room you enter. The unfortunate truth is that most people live as if presence is something that happens by chance, uncontrollable, like a side effect. But the truth is, social presence is always a design. Either you are the one designing it, or you're being shaped by unconscious signals you're not even aware you're sending. You may be talented, you may have brilliant ideas, you may be kind, hardworking, and trustworthy, but if you walk into a room with slouched posture, hesitant steps, eyes downcast, and an unsure voice, everything you are can be dimmed in a single moment. Because the world doesn't respond to the value within you. It responds to the signals you send outward. And those signals are never random. They are the result of a sequence of choices, behaviors, habits, and your level of awareness carried with you every day. Someone with strong presence doesn't need to speak much. They don't occupy space with volume. They occupy space with frequency, with inner steadiness, with posture that is relaxed but firm, with eyes that look straight but not confrontational, with their timing silent when silence is right and precise when words are needed. Someone with presence doesn't try to draw attention. They cause people to pay attention naturally, simply because their way of being is intentional. You cannot build social presence through surface-level techniques. Conversation tips, body language tricks, or behavioral psychology hacks may get you through a job interview, a networking event, or a presentation, but to make others feel that you carry real weight, you must go deeper. You must live with such inner clarity that even your smallest actions reflect that solidity. No one can fake steadiness for long. Steadiness is something you must forge from the inside out every day. If you constantly feel overlooked, dismissed, or not listened to enough, the question isn't, why don't others respect me? It's, what signal am I unconsciously sending that allows this to happen? Social presence is not about seeking validation. It's about stopping the demand for approval and beginning to reestablish how others respond to you. And that starts with you, respecting every step you take, every word you speak, every calm and firm no, every time you choose not to force a polite smile when it isn't necessary. One of the marks of someone with strong presence is that they don't need to prove anything. Solidity doesn't need evidence. It radiates naturally from someone who has learned to remain still in the midst of turbulence. Others can feel that, even if they can't describe it in words. And because of that, they begin to adjust their tone, their word choices, and their attentiveness when interacting with you. Not because you're intimidating, but because you transmit a sense of boundaries. And that is a language the most mature people in society always recognize. To build such presence, begin with self-observation. Stand in front of a mirror, not to check your appearance, but to observe the signals you're sending. Are your shoulders slouched or upright? Does your gaze waver? Is your smile forced or intentional? When you enter a room, do you feel like someone who has the right to be there, or do you silently seek permission to be accepted? These details are unspoken metrics, yet stronger than any resume. Another crucial element of presence is your voice. You don't need a naturally powerful tone, but you do need awareness of rhythm, clarity, and pace. Those with strong presence often speak more slowly, not because they lack ideas, but because they don't need to compete for space. They know their words carry weight, and they allow the surrounding air to settle so others can absorb that weight. You don't need to say too much. You only need to speak rightly, at the right time, and speak as if your words matter. Because if you don't believe that, no one else will. Remember, people don't remember much of what you say, but they always remember how they felt around you. And that feeling comes from the frequency you emit, from your real presence, from eyes that listen, from calm that avoids overreaction, from the absence of trying to prove anything. Those with social presence don't walk into a room to be acknowledged. They walk in as if they belong there, even if it's their first time. If you want to upgrade your presence, redesign these three things: posture, voice, and silence. Your posture doesn't need to be rigid, just stable. Your voice doesn't need to be loud, just rhythmic and clear. Your silence doesn't need to be long, just not rushed to be filled by your fear of awkwardness. Above all, establish this rule for yourself: every time I walk into a space, I bring value. not a plea for permission. The world responds to the frequency you broadcast. If you emit signals of insecurity, chaos, or indecisiveness, others will feel uneasy around you even if they don't know why. If you emit steadiness, calm, and direction, people will instinctively treat you as someone worth listening to. That's a rule, and you cannot change that rule with excuses. You can only change it by redesigning your presence, deliberately, starting today. Begin now, with how you stand when you speak, with the next time you walk into a room, and instead of bowing your head, you lift your chin and breathe deeply. With removing weak openers like "I just want to say something quickly" and replacing them with certainty. With embracing silence instead of rushing to fill it with nervous chatter. And every small action like that, when repeated with consistency, will forge a new version of you. A person with weight, with boundaries, with a presence the world cannot ignore. No one changes their life just by knowing more. If knowledge alone were enough to transform destiny, then everyone who reads books would be wealthy, everyone who listens to podcasts would be disciplined, and everyone who takes personal development courses would be successful. But the world doesn't operate on theory. It responds to what you produce, not what you understand. You don't get paid for the knowledge you possess, but for the results you create. And results are not born from good ideas, they're born from consistent action. There's a harsh truth that only mature individuals are willing to face. Life doesn't reward those who know a lot. It rewards those who do enough. Those who say they're learning but never take action are just accumulating knowledge like unused fat. The more you store, the heavier and more sluggish you become. Knowledge that isn't applied turns into illusion, and the more you know without doing, the more likely you are to become complacent with the illusion that you're progressing, when in fact you're just postponing in a more cultured way. You don't need another piece of advice. You need a first action, not a perfect one, not one taken when you feel ready, but action taken, even when you're still unsure, still clumsy, still lacking confidence, because action is the only thing that brings clarity to what is still blurry. You can think for weeks about starting a business, but only when you begin building a product, talking to the first customer, receiving real feedback, do you actually understand, rather than just understand on paper. Successful people are not different from you in intelligence. They're different in their ability to act consistently despite emotion. They take action even when they're uncertain. They dare to move before they feel confident. They make decisions and commit to them instead of waiting for a risk-free option. You don't need to know everything. You only need to know the next step and take it. When you act, data comes. When data comes, you adjust. And with enough adjustments, you'll reach something you once thought required a lifetime of preparation just to dream about. Action is also how you learn at the deepest level. Someone who learns through experience will always outperform someone who only reads but never tries. The person who dares to act, even awkwardly, even with failure, even under judgment, accumulates a type of knowledge that no book can teach, tactical intuition. And that intuition, over time, helps you make decisions faster, more accurately, and with less reliance on luck. If you're delaying action, don't blame yourself for lacking motivation. Be honest. You're probably waiting for certainty. But life doesn't offer insurance for perfectionists. The more you wait for ideal conditions to begin, the further you drift from the place you were meant to arrive. The only way to build motivation is to start before motivation shows up. Motivation doesn't come first. It's the reward you receive after you begin. Also, don't confuse busyness with real action. Some people spend the entire day preparing, researching, planning, consuming more content without producing any measurable result. That's fake movement, like walking on a treadmill. You sweat, you get tired, but you don't move one step forward on the real journey. Real action is when you create a product, make a tough phone call, post a message, send a proposal, show up in public, accept risk, even in small amounts. You don't need to do something grand to build momentum. One well-timed action, even small, can shift the entire trajectory of your day. That task you've been avoiding, if you do it today, it could free you from weeks of mental drag. That project you've been waiting to perfect, if you start it as a draft today, it might become the launch pad that changes your entire career path. Every big thing begins with a clumsy first step. No one builds a tower by flying to the 50th floor. They lay bricks, action by action, day by day, and don't stop. The truth is, you're not short on time. You're spending time on things that don't produce real outcomes. You're not lacking talent. You're letting your talent be buried under days of waiting to feel confident enough. You're not short on opportunities, you just haven't acted enough for those opportunities to appear. In the real world, opportunities don't come to dreamers, they come to doers. No one sees you reading books at dawn, but the world notices when you create value. Action is also how you influence. Those with impact don't need to talk much, they just need to show what they've done. Real accomplishments speak louder than words. People believe in you when they see you showing up. They follow you when you don't just advise, but lead by example. And they change when you don't just say the right things, but live the right things. Every day. True influence doesn't come from perfection, but from unbroken commitment. If you're still hesitating, ask yourself, what is one action, no matter how small, I can take today to move closer to my goal? And do it. Not perfectly, not ready, just honestly and with full intent. Because through that one action, you reaffirm to your brain, I'm no longer just a talker, I'm a doer. Starting today, reset your standard for living. No action, no value. No results, no excuses. No tangible output, no need for explanation. Every day must include one measurable action that moves you forward, even by a step. And one day you'll look back and realize your life wasn't written by the books you read, but by the brave actions you took when you weren't ready. When you act, you turn potential into reality, and that reality is the only thing that changes destiny. No one is born decisive. Clarity in decision-making doesn't come from instinct. It comes from mental discipline, forged every time you force yourself to make a decision, no matter how small, how hard, or how unclear. Conversely, hesitation doesn't come from a lack of intelligence, but from never having truly trained the ability to choose with finality, accept the consequences, and commit to that choice until the end. A decisive person is not someone who knows everything in advance, but someone who dares to choose without knowing it all. The world doesn't wait for you to keep thinking. Opportunity won't sit still while you do a fifth round of pros and cons. And life does not reward those who know many options. It rewards those who choose one and act on it. Many people live in chronic fatigue not because they lack energy, but because their minds are stuck in endless decision loops. Every moment of indecision consumes cognitive resources. And if you let that indecision drag on too long, it not only slows you down, it erodes your sense of agency over your own inner world. The indecisive often say, I'm still weighing my options. But in truth, most weighing is procrastination disguised as rationality. Behind that hesitation is fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of responsibility. But if you're not willing to take responsibility for your own choices, you'll end up living a life shaped by the decisions of others. And that's not just a disservice to yourself, it's a surrender of the greatest power we all have, the power to shape our lives through every decision we make. Being decisive doesn't mean being hasty. It means being able to make a choice quickly enough to seize the moment and clearly enough to avoid wasting energy through distraction. Decisive people don't need to be sure of the outcome. They only need to know what step needs to be taken next. And if it's the wrong one, they don't punish themselves with regret. They adjust, they adapt, they learn, and they move forward with a new decision. Clearer, quicker. So decisiveness isn't a one-time act, but a chain of continuous choices, each one better than the last, because you had the courage to keep practicing. You can start training decisiveness with simple tasks. Set a time limit for small choices. Instead of spending 30 minutes scrolling food delivery apps, limit yourself to 2 minutes. Instead of rewriting that email to perfection, send it after the third edit. Instead of waiting for inspiration to start, pick a fixed time and do it regardless of how you feel. Each time you force yourself to make faster, clearer decisions, you're training a neural muscle responsible for self-control. And that muscle will save you in bigger moments when you have to choose between two major opportunities, between holding on or letting go of a relationship, between switching careers or staying the course. People often say, I can't decide because I'm not sure yet, but the truth is certainty doesn't come before a decision. It comes after action. When you step forward, the data you need begins to show up. When you choose, the universe starts responding. When you act, confidence is forged. People who move slowly aren't weak. They're waiting for perfect clarity. But that feeling rarely comes because most important decisions come wrapped in ambiguity. And that's when you have to choose without seeing the full picture. The more you wait, the more rhythm you lose. The more you hesitate, the more sharpness you sacrifice. Your decisiveness is one of the first things others will sense and judge you on, even if you don't realize it. A person who always says, I'm not sure, I need more time, let me think about it on everything, from minor matters to major ones, will gradually lose credibility. No one trusts someone who doesn't trust themselves, and no one follows someone who questions every step. If you want to be treated as someone with weight, start making decisions like someone with weight. And don't fear being wrong. Decisive people aren't afraid of mistakes. They're afraid of missed chances. They know the price of a mistake can be fixed, but the price of not choosing can quietly haunt you for life. You can make a wrong call, learn a lesson, and come back stronger. But you learn nothing by standing still at every fork in the road. No action, no result, no choice, no progress. And if you've made bad decisions in the past, don't use that as a reason to justify your current inaction. A mistake doesn't prove you shouldn't choose. It only proves you need to refine your ability to choose better. Every skill is developed through deliberate repetition. Decisiveness is no different. Every time you choose while your hands still tremble, you're moving in the right direction. From today on, make a commitment. Don't let yourself drift by default. Everything you say yes to must be something you truly want. Everything you delay must have a clear, valid reason. Every choice must be linked to a follow-through action. Don't say later unless you've scheduled when later is. Don't say I don't know unless you're actively trying to find out. And don't say whatever you think just to dodge the discomfort of owning a decision. Every time you do that, you're stripping yourself of your own power. Decisiveness is not innate. It's a cognitive muscle you must train daily. Train it through action. Train it through clarity. Train it by daring to take responsibility for your life instead of hiding from it. And then, little by little, you'll become someone others can trust. But more importantly, you'll become someone you can trust. And when you believe in your ability to choose, the world will begin to reflect that belief right back at you. No one can sustain discipline by sheer willpower forever. Willpower, like energy, is limited each day. And when you're tired, distracted, or under pressure, willpower runs dry. But systems don't. A system keeps working even when your excitement fades. It's the underlying operating framework of your life. The rules you set, the habits you maintain, the environment you choose, and the boundaries you apply to yourself. You don't live by goals. You live by systems. And that system, whether it's been consciously designed or left to form unconsciously, is quietly pulling you toward the future you deserve or dragging you closer to the version of yourself you're trying to escape. Successful people aren't always more motivated than you, but they have a life system that forces them to keep going, even when they lack inspiration. They don't rely on emotion, they design behavior. They know what matters and they create conditions for those things to happen automatically. Each morning starts at the same hour. Every meal is pre-decided. Study time, work time, recovery time are protected like non-negotiable contracts because they understand true freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from a system that helps you do what's right consistently without falling off track. Look back at your day. How many actions did you take because they were clearly planned? How many of your decisions were guided by a system instead of whim? How many minutes did you control versus how many were hijacked by social media, news, and other people's agendas? A system doesn't have to be complex, but if you don't have one, don't be surprised if you're exhausted yet producing no results. You're not lacking energy, you're just leaking it daily through cracks that a good system could have sealed effortlessly. You can't control everything, but you can absolutely design an environment that forces your growth. Start with the physical environment, tidy, separated, free from distractions. A clean desk equals a clear mind. Then fix your digital environment. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Uninstall addictive apps. Limit social media usage through software. Finally, curate your human environment. Filter who you interact with each day. You don't need many people. You need the right ones. People who elevate your standards, stretch your thinking, and deepen your work. A life system also includes a structured schedule. Each hour shouldn't drift by aimlessly. Whether you're a creative, an engineer, a business person, or a researcher, clarity in time management is the common trait of top performers. Instead of writing a long to-do list, assign specific time blocks for each task. From 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., write the report. From 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., practice English speaking. That's not just smart scheduling. It's how you turn commitment into action and action into results. Also, a life system must include feedback and adjustment mechanisms. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what moved me forward today? What slowed me down? How can tomorrow be more effective? Those who don't self-review cannot self-upgrade, and if you don't adjust, the system will gradually drift off course. Don't wait until everything falls apart to fix it. Check in daily. Write short journal entries, record wins, and areas for improvement. That regular reflection keeps your whole life structure alert and adaptable. Your system should also include active recovery time. You can't just keep running without recharging. But rest doesn't mean letting things go. Active rest means you schedule mental and physical recovery with the same seriousness you give to work. Sleep on time. Read instead of scrolling your phone. Take a slow walk instead of slouching through social feeds. Spend time in silence instead of constantly trying to connect. These moments are not wasted. They're the subtle architecture that keeps you from breaking down when intensity rises. If you feel yourself slipping into stagnation, it may not be because you're weak, but because your life system is pulling you down. Systems don't stay still. They're either helping you grow daily or quietly building resistance. Every habit you repeat, every space you inhabit, every person you speak with regularly, they're all contributing to that system. And if you don't take control of it, you will become a product of it. Don't expect strong discipline if the system you live in feeds chaos. Don't dream of high performance if your habits include staying up late, eating randomly, working in bursts. Don't blame yourself for low motivation if your environment is filled with complainers and procrastinators. Discipline cannot thrive in a loose structure. Conversely, you don't have to force yourself so much when your system is already designed to support you from the ground up. So from today, stop chasing random tips. Sit down and rewrite your life system. The time you work, the space you live in, the people you engage with, your morning routines, your evening rituals, your boundaries with technology, your feedback loop. Every one of these details forms a larger structure. And that structure will improve the quality of your life faster than any course, advice, or book ever could. Because when your system is right, you don't need to try so hard, you just follow the design you've chosen. And when you follow it consistently, life stops being a series of exhausting efforts. It becomes a steady journey of upward movement. Slow but solid, step by step, no flash needed, just stability. And that very stability is the true foundation for lasting achievement. You don't become a new person just because you decided to change. You only truly transform when your daily behaviors begin to reflect a new identity, not in thought, but in the reality you live. A big idea won't change your life, but a small action repeated correctly and consistently will completely rewrite how you define yourself. And when you keep acting like the version you're becoming, there will come a point when you no longer have to try to become that person. You are that person. You may say you're becoming disciplined, but if you still snooze your alarm each morning, still procrastinate on goals you've set, still eat based on emotion, your mind will quietly register that your words carry no weight. Every time your actions contradict the identity you claim, you're undermining your own belief in yourself. And that internal conflict, if prolonged, will make you doubt whether you can truly change at all. Changing identity isn't a single event. It's a continuous chain of behaviors, each action a vote for the person you want to become. You want to be healthy? What will you choose today? A clean meal or an emotional snack? You want to be focused? Will you write 500 words during work hours or scroll your phone because you feel a bit tired? You want to be trustworthy? Have you followed through on the smallest promise you made to yourself yesterday? Each behavior doesn't just produce a result, it's a declaration of identity. The more you repeat the right behavior, the more you reinforce the new image. And gradually, your subconscious will begin to respond in that new format. You no longer have to think so hard because your brain has recognized you as that type of person. You no longer wrestle with each decision because you know exactly what someone like you does in that situation. To reinforce a new identity, start with small but specific actions. Don't try to transform completely overnight. Instead, commit to actions that are easy to do. Leave no room for excuses, but have powerful psychological effects. A simple habit repeated each morning, like waking up on time, drinking water, deep breathing, writing down 3 goals, becomes the anchor that shapes how you enter the world. Habit before bed, like journaling, turning off screens, planning tomorrow, helps your brain solidify the identity of someone who lives deliberately. Right actions don't have to be grand, they just need to be clear and repeated. Reading 5 pages a day will shift your thinking faster than binge reading a thick book once and forgetting it for a month. Exercising for 15 minutes consistently does more than 1 hour of training, followed by a week of nothing. Sending 1 difficult email daily strengthens your courage and communication more than staying silent all month. That is the art of being small, steady, and deep. You don't need to do a lot. You just need to do the right thing consistently. When you begin noticing change, don't celebrate too early. Look at your next reflex. Because a new identity isn't solidified by doing the right thing once. It takes shape when you repeat the right thing, even when no one's watching, when the excitement fades, when no obvious reward is present. The solidity of identity comes from sustaining behavior despite imperfect conditions, and that's when you'll know who you've really become. Your brain doesn't register declarations, it registers repeated behavior. So instead of continuing to say, I'm changing, start acting like someone who's already changed. You want to be stronger? Don't wait until you feel ready. Act now as if you already have that strength. It's the consistency in action that retrains your brain to say, this is who I am now. One common mistake that prevents new identity from sticking is relapsing without noticing. Just 1 week of staying up late again, eating mindlessly, procrastinating, consuming toxic content is enough to let old programming creep back in. Not because you're weak, but because your nervous system, without reminders, will default to familiar comfort zones. That's why you must set up continuous cues, a question taped to your mirror, a schedule on the wall, a partner to check your progress weekly. The more intentional signals you embed, the better you shield your new identity from the return of old habits. And finally, understand this: identity isn't a statement. It's a repeated sequence of choices. You are not the person you hope to become. You are the person you act like. Every day, you're casting votes for a version of yourself. Each time you choose right, you reinforce it. Each time you surrender, you delay the reshaping of who you are. Starting today, don't aim to change your whole life in a month. Just choose one behavior, do it right, Do it regularly and recognize that each correct choice is a step closer to the person you are building. And those choices, quiet yet powerful, will become a new neural framework, a new emotional map, a foundation for greater achievement in the future. No one needs to believe you've changed. Your repeated behavior will say it for you, and eventually, without declaration, without explanation, you'll walk into a room and people will sense it clearly. This person is different, not because you speak differently, but because you live differently, and every behavior you choose from today on is a brick laid into an identity that no one can take away. There are doors that once you've stepped through them, you can't pretend you haven't seen what lies behind. There are truths that once touched forever changed the way you see yourself. And from that moment on, you are no longer innocent in your own life. You know you have a choice. You know you have power. You know that if you continue living as your old self, it's no longer due to circumstance. It's a conscious decision. And that truth, as heavy as it may be, is the greatest gift you've ever received. You can't go back to being who you were after experiencing what it feels like to live with intention. You can't fake satisfaction in procrastination after having tasted the thrill of breakthrough. You can't accept old habits after seeing yourself conquer a brutal wave of laziness. And you certainly can't live half-heartedly again after spending a day awake, deep, clear, living as if every second carried weight. Going back is the easiest choice. What's familiar is always seductive. What's old always feels safe. Your brain, without guidance, will always pick the path of least resistance, and nothing is easier than returning to where you once escaped. But that's like choosing to stay in a dark room just because you were once familiar with the darkness, even though you now know there is light outside. That safe place is no longer your home. It's merely where you used to be before you knew who you were. You know the truth now. That every repeated behavior rewrites identity, that every small action accumulates into destiny, that discipline is not a punishment but a gift you give yourself, that energy doesn't come from fleeting motivation but from the system you choose to live in each day, that inner strength doesn't come from avoidance but from your ability to endure what you once feared, and that lasting change doesn't begin with emotion, it begins with a committed decision. You can't pretend you didn't hear those truths. You can't say, I don't know what to do. You can't recycle old excuses. You can't lull yourself to sleep with tired phrases like, I'm not ready, I'll start tomorrow, or I'll begin again from the beginning. You don't need to start over. You need to continue from where you stood up, with what you already know, with sharper awareness than yesterday. The further you go, the clearer it becomes. It's not your enemies that hold you back. It's not your circumstances. It's not lack of luck. The only thing constantly trying to drag you down is the old version of you, the one you once lived with, once defended, once gave too much room to speak. And now, having come this far, it no longer has enough arguments to convince you. But it will still whisper, just one more time. It's not that serious. What's the harm in relaxing a bit? Look it in the eye and say, I know the truth, and I can't pretend to be blind anymore. No one can hold you back unless you agree to the retreat. No one can pull you down unless you compromise and rationalize your own surrender. And if you've ever thought, I'll take a break and come back stronger, remember, most people don't lose their new identity through a massive fall, but through one small permission left unchecked. Just one moment of living like the old self opens the door for the entire old system to return, and erosion begins there, millimeter by millimeter, until one day you wake up and find yourself back at the starting line. There is no going back for someone who has awakened. You may still find old habits familiar, but they will no longer satisfy you. You may still survive like before, but you will no longer feel proud. You may still repeat your safe rhythms, but inside a part of you will constantly ask, I came this far, why stop here? And that question will make it impossible for you to feel at peace while living below your true potential. And that's a good sign, because it proves you've transformed. You are no longer who you were, and the only thing left is a permanent commitment. I'm not going back. even if I'm tired, even if I slip. I'm only allowed to pause for recovery, but never to surrender. Because the truth I've seen, I can no longer unsee. You didn't change because of one big event. You changed through small behaviors. You didn't get this far because of a giant leap, but through steady steps. And if that effort brought you here, just a little more consistency will take you somewhere beyond even your imagination. As long as you don't go back, remember the feeling when you lived right. That quiet confidence, that peace unshaken by circumstance. That pride when you knew you were doing what's right, even when no one was watching. Remember the feeling of pushing through laziness, completing your tasks, staying sharp in temptation, and stepping into your day without forcing it, just living the life you designed. That life wasn't handed to you. That strength wasn't forced upon you. That identity was self-built, and no one gets to take it from you unless you let go. So don't let go. Don't abandon a life lived right for one weary day. Don't cancel your entire journey for one slip. Don't let a moment of weakness cloud the truth you already know. You are absolutely capable. You've done it before, and you will do it again with deeper resolve, greater steadiness, and more self-respect than ever before. Because once you've seen the truth, there's no reason left to turn back. There is only one direction forward. Steady, quiet, and never the same again.